Fala, NTzada. How are you all doing? Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and please like this video. But with no further ado, I'm going to ask my friend to join us and we can start this brief conversation. All right.
Hey.
He's here.
Yeah, what's up?
Koralik.
How
are
you
you
doing?
my man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for always say yes when I ask you for a crazy stuff.
No problem. I'm usually everybody's likes to pop their first cherry with me as like their new channel thing. Even when Sega they started like a live streaming of like retro content thing, like their own official. They're like, we'll get Adam first as just like a trial before we continue on to do it because I'm just the low hanging fruit that's just easy to get a hold of. So happy to do it.
No, you are a very nice person. That's what you are. So that's why it's always like that.
I promise, like, I'm not balding. The headphones, like the way, like the camera angle, I kind of haphazardly set this up in case that isn't obvious, and so it just kind of looks like I'm losing my hair. But I swear, it's like, look, it's
you're good. No, you're good. You're good.
Anyway,
hats. Always use hats. You don't have this issue anymore.
You're wise beyond your years, sir.
Right, Adam? Am I crazy to start a new channel in 2024?
Yes. But hey, you know, you got to do what you got to do. We were joking about this in my Discord today. Like, if we were going to start a new video game channel, the market is so saturated with video game channels, and the only reason, like, honestly, like guys like me are still around is just because, like, I started doing this, 15 years ago when there was not really anybody doing it. But we were joking about it. I said if I had to, like, I don't know if you know this, my channel got hacked like a few months ago.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, whatever. Like, fortunately, I got it back. But like, if it hadn't. And if I hadn't got the channel back and it was like, I have to start an entirely new video game channel, my joke was basically like, I was gonna be like, you know what? I'm going to do an exclusively clickbait channel. So it's going to be called like gaming clickbait. And I would just make up headlines like Nintendo sends me Nintendo Switch 3, no Switch 2 confirmed. And then just like total lies that are absolutely ridiculous. Like to the point where it comes off like a parody, like what live stream of Taylor Swift and I playing video games, like just stuff that's not possible. And I thought that would be a nice commentary on clickbait, and I hate clickbait videos, so that was all. But that was just a joke. I wouldn't actually do that. Other than that, no. I think you have an interesting. I'm guessing what you're going for here is. I want to introduce people of North America and Europe to what was going on in Brazil. Because Brazil in particular is a very interesting story with video games, especially with the Sega stuff, as I know you mentioned. Their history with Nintendo is equally as bizarre. Their modern day, due to taxes and things that make it kind of modern day gaming very bizarre down there. When we think of video games, we typically think of how they occurred in North America, specifically the US, Japan, of course. And then to a lesser extent, kind of Europe is cobbled together as one. Sometimes you get a nice reference to like Australia or like Hong Kong or something. But Brazil has a very, very interesting and bizarre history. And I like that we actually have someone in the game talking about it. Because I'm not going to just sit here and pitch my Discord, but we are constantly, there's guys in there being like, I want TecToy stuff. I want bizarre oddities. We don't have anybody who represents that because like we don't really know. So yeah, if that's what you're doing, and if you're not, I'm sorry for everybody getting you all hyped up. It turns out he's talking about the clickbait.
You got it.
Make that. Okay, good. That's better then. Then I'm looking forward to watching that content because I want to see more of that weird stuff that came out of there.
That's so much weird stuff, and that's why I was like, I think I can talk more about that. It's funny you say about the audience because I cannot tell about this channel for any of my Brazilian audience because otherwise the YouTube is gonna think that this is a Brazil channel. And then everything is going to be, how do I say, going to there in terms of the financially, in terms of everything it's going to charge there. And YouTuber probably got a quarter of a YouTuber what they gain here in US.
Oh, Brazil. Obviously you're talking about like tax logistics, but also just simple marketing. Like when you speak English, logically so, your video is marketed to English speaking countries.
Exactly.
Number one economy in the world, like us or hate us, is the United States. It just is. So then you also get, of course, the UK would be number 2 as far as English-speaking countries. Canada, Australia. Oddly enough, Germany always comes in at like number 4, even though it's I mean, they speak English over there. They just act like they don't. But like, there's a lot of countries where that just pans out. And as you said, Portuguese really is only valid in Portugal and Brazil,
exactly.
where like I would argue like half that population speaks English anyway. And I mean, granted, you would know more about it. And then of course, Portuguese and Brazilians love to hate each other. Just like, oh, the language is slightly different. Go, everybody, you suck, you suck, you suck, you suck.
You know that.
I'm sorry about the blurriness of the camera. I can't do anything about it. Stupid autofocus. All right.
No worries. And again, I mean, the audience definitely is Brazilian. They are very loyal. I mean, Brazil is probably the top 10 probably of people who love social media. Sure. They are crazy about that, more than a lot of people that I know in US. But even that, the payment for YouTube is much worse. The other thing is I'm not doing that for that. So I'm doing because I want to have fun. I want to talk with my friends here in US. I just want to sit on my game room here and talk about games. Don't we all want to do this all the time? So I think that's how nerd we are, right? We want just to talk about this.
We made a hobby and then a career out of talking about our hobby.
Exactly.
Like it's pretty cool. It's got its perks.
Yeah, exactly. And the third thing is I want to make sure that I can talk about TecToy. TecToy is still something that it's on my heart because that's my first video game. My first Master System was from TecToy. And I talked with the TecToy CEO on my other channel. And I was telling him that the story of me getting that video game was totally crazy. My mother went to the shop to buy a Nintendo. And she saw this one and bought this one for us without myself and my brother even knowing that Master System was a thing. Right. Because the thing was a Nintendo. So we start to play. We were probably the one or two people in our condominium that has a Master System. Then became a thing. Then TecToy became a thing. Then everything was about Sega with Master System in the Sega Mega Drive that as the Sega Genesis.
So but before we go on, like you said, this is marked this channel, this video is going to be presented more to North Americans and Europeans.
Yes.
Okay. So then what I would suggest is a lot of us don't really know the basic story of TecToy or what any of that was. So I don't know where you were going with this podcast, but I would say at least set up the basics, because I know for you, TecToy is just, hey, that's just what it was. But for us, it's like, sorry, what was that? I'm just giving you some advice.
Yeah, you probably know much better. No worries. You probably know much better about TecToy, and people who knows about video game knows about TecToy. But this was the form of a way for Sega to get in Brazil. And why is that? The market was closed to any imports. So nobody could actually bring any company as today and start to sell there because they want to. You have to find a partner, because then the government was giving more help for the Brazilian companies. They want to grow the internal economy. So TecToy was an internal company made to actually sell toys in the beginning, in electronic toys. The owner or the creator just was crazy about toys and crazy about technology. So he decided to, okay, I want to do this. And then he started to dig and see what else he could do. The first electronic toy that he brought was very known, and I don't know the name in English, but you're going to know. I'm going to show you what it is.
Okay.
That's the first one that he brought it.
Yeah, so while he's doing that, I mean, basic elevator pitch of what TecToy is, like you said, Brazilian company that was kind of used as a proxy to bring Japanese and American electronics, and European, I guess, down there. What is that?
Do you remember this toy in America?
No, it looks like a cash register or something.
That was not. That was like a mini computer. So you have those colors, you have a keyboard here, you have numbers here, and you interact with this type of books with the game here.
All right, that one. Yes, I've never seen that. At least in my recollection.
Yeah, I have to go and dig the name in English, and I'll put here on the
What's
podcast.
It called? Is that what it's called? I'm forgetting my pronunciation. Pense Bem. All right, I'm gonna look that up and see if I can
think well. Pense Bem. Think well.
TecToys.
Think better. Yeah.
Yeah. It's of course the entire article is written in Portuguese.
Yes. And I can find. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the wiki right now. It's called the Thinkwell in English.
Thinkwell, yes.
Okay, and it's a computer toy, obviously. It's a version of the Smart Start.
You got it. That's the name of
Smart
the
Start.
the
Okay.
American one. The American one was a little different. It was red. There was no many books. They sold probably 100 books, 200
Sure.
books there. They were creating books after books after books after books. Even Ayrton Senna, you probably know him from Formula One. Big guy. Formula One now is a thing in US.
Well, I know
Not
it's
anymore.
racing. Yeah, I got that
Exactly.
part.
So now that everybody saw that on Netflix, everybody knows what Formula One is in US, but that was not a thing back in the day. It was an European and Brazilian because the driver was very good. Unfortunately, he actually died racing in 94, but he was a good partner for Pennsylvania to create a book also for the system. Anyways, TecToy starts with those crazy toys, electronic toys. Then they went to the Zillion. Do you remember the Zillion pistol?
For like the Master System?
Exactly. Do you remember that before the Master System? There was a game, like a laser tag game.
Okay, yeah.
So
I believe you.
Yeah. That was in Japan. So they actually brought that to Brazil. And they start to license that. They sold a lot of Zillion pistols and all these tag games and all this. So then Sega was looking for that in a different way. Like, okay, they can actually sell some of our toys. So Sega started to talk with them. Gradiente, who was doing the clone of Nintendo in Brazil, also wanted to actually have Master System and Sega Genesis in Brazil. They were competing to get it. But because of the work that they did with Zillion, TecToy got the license. So they brought Sega to Brazil with Master System. Master System became a thing probably because of the piracy. Was very hard to you actually get it pirate, but you had a lot of clones on Nintendo because Nintendo was not officially there. Nobody was representing them.
Yeah, they had like a hot minute where they were, and then they bailed.
In the end, exactly.
Yeah. I know you can tell the story better, but
yeah. Yeah, in the beginning, Nintendo was all clones in Brazil, and everybody knows about the Famiclones. Big ones. I do have like a few on this.
Do you have the Phantom one?
Yes, the Phantom system.
I mean, like, do you actually have it around you?
Yeah, you want to see it?
Yeah, I do. All right. So the Phantom, while he's going to get that, is a very weird machine. It basically is an NES that's more or less officially licensed, if I recall correctly. But at the same time, I think it uses the body of the Atari 7800, also known as the Atari 2600, like Sears Pro model. Like it's a very definitive shape. And I think that I can see him looking. I think you can all see him looking too. Hopefully he finds it here. I've never seen one in person. He has, obviously he's got one, but like when I last saw him, we were hanging out at Portland Retro Game Expo 2023. He had this great Brazilian booth set up, full of stuff, and I admit I picked some stuff up from him. That one was not an option. Otherwise I might have considered it, but yeah, I want more of these Brazilian oddities if he's able to get a hold of them there. Okay.
The Phantom system.
Yep. I was just telling them about this. So it basically is an NES that, correct me if I'm wrong, I think basically sort of officially licensed.
Yes.
But then uses the Atari 7800 case.
Yes.
Which is just like, you could see why Nintendo went, what?
What are you doing? Exactly.
Yeah.
So Gradiente, it's here. Phantom. So the Gradiente was like TecToy for Nintendo, but they were not officially licensed.
I just noticed the bottom. Can you put the bottom back up?
Yeah.
The bottom, the controllers are Sega Genesis controllers.
Correct.
So they literally like did everything other than what Nintendo would have wanted.
Yes.
That's
the controller is exactly the same of the Sega Genesis, but two buttons. And the C is a start.
Of course.
It's so crazy. Yeah. The cartridge is very famous in Brazil also. So you can look at that.
One.
The black one says Gradiente here. So I have the Ghostbuster from Nintendo, but also I love to have this because that was my first setup, my first Nintendo setup. That was exactly what was it.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that's how it was. And there was a second one.
There was. I didn't know that. So that's what you were looking for over there.
Yeah, CCE, very famous in Brazil also. They did the top game. So either you have a top game
Yeah.
Either you have a Phantom. This one you actually can get the 60.
The Famicom cartridges.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
All
also
right.
you can do the other one. You can
Oh,
do
that's
the
cool.
Nintendo one. Yeah.
That's actually neat.
So you can do both.
That's pretty neat. So it looks kind of almost like, I want to say the Coleco Gemini or something. It looks like bizarre, like it's just another stolen mold somewhere.
They probably stole mold.
Yeah.
Yes, probably. Yes.
That's pretty cool.
So this one actually has the font all internally. So it was a pain because always was breaking, and then you have to take for somebody to fix it.
Of course.
It was always a pain in Brazil, but there was so many specialized electronic people there that they could do for you for $5. You know what I mean? Like, because that happened all the time.
Yeah, who knew that pirated Chinese clones or whatever sent just to Brazil would be poorly made?
There is also a Dynavision. There is a Dynavision is from Dynacon.
Oh, the SG-1000 clone?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
You know what it is.
Yeah, of course I do.
I do have that here too.
Later, if you want to grab it, go for it. Otherwise, that's no problem. But I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, the SG-1000 clone. SG-1000 was Sega's first system that like nobody ever talks about because it really only came out in Japan. It had like a very limited release in parts of Europe and like New Zealand. What you got here? So it looks like an Atari 2600.
Exactly, that's a clone.
Of course it is.
We couldn't have Atari there, so that's the Doctor. That was
the Doctor.
Doctor, yeah, Dactari.
Okay.
Yeah, so you could actually have the same cartridges functioning here. The mode is exactly the same, so they found a way to get the mode. But they have their brand here.
How's it spelled? In Portuguese. Yeah.
Dactar.
Dactar?
Yeah, Doctor.
Okay, all right, yeah.
See.
Oh, yeah, okay, I see it, yeah.
Video game.
Doctor video game, of course. We all grew up on it. You know, we all know. Yeah.
So that's how you play Atari back in the day. Or you have a friend that was very rich, it was going to US and brought that to you. But do we have the color system as an issue? Because you were doing NTSC and we are all PAL. So
you're like that weird PAL too, like PAL M.
PAL M.
Yeah.
Then you have to play black and white, or you have to have a system that should transcode the color. I do have one of this system, and I use on the trade shows, on the fairs that we go.
Yeah,
so
I've seen
people can see it. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. While you were gone, I was telling them that like we hung out at PRGE and like I was checking out some of the stuff. Yeah.
But those systems were the way to play Nintendo, while Master System was growing by itself. So you don't have clones for Master System. It's all about them. Every time there was kind of a piracy, TecToy was right away on top of them, and they cut it. So TecToy was very smart at the time. So that's why they are very successful. After this, Sega Genesis came.
Okay.
They launched it, continue with the Master System in the line. Master System was selling very well, but they were doing rip-offs, even TecToy, on the Master System. So they are like, the Master System 2 that you have was the our 3. And why they do that? Because they got a Master System 2 with Alex Kidd in the memory.
Yeah, I think you showed me that one, right?
Yeah. That's the Master System 2. The 3 was just RF. So they were removing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, to make it cheaper.
Selling, exactly. Yeah. They never raised the price. I was talking with the CEO. Was always $299 reais at the time, or whatever it is. And they were keeping that forever, like keeping that price forever, but they were ripping off the system all the time.
Right, of course.
Master System is still alive, so just so you know.
Yeah, oh, I know. That's always something. Everybody out there, you need to understand this.
I'll bring that one. Why you say that? Yeah.
Thanks to Brazil, the Sega Master System is still technically an active system, as it still gets new iterations, it still gets new content, believe it or not. Now, granted, we're at a point where it's all like just basically, emulators on a chip type of tech, but Sega is still licensing it. And therefore, technically, the Sega Master System is history's longest running active video game console by 20, 30 years? I mean, yeah, because aside from that one, the oldest one that is still getting new official content is the Xbox One.
Oh, really?
Isn't it?
Yeah, 360 no, right?
360's done.
Yeah, done. Yeah, probably
PS3's done.
Yeah.
Wii's done.
Well,
Wii U's
Play 4
done.
is still
PlayStation 4 and
Yeah.
and Xbox. They're only separated by a week, although I forget which one came first. Whichever one came first technically is the world's oldest active video game system at the moment, which is like, and then other than, of course, the Sega Master System, which goes back like 30 years earlier, or 20 years earlier. But
So that's the new version. They're selling
I've seen
right
that.
now.
I remember you showing me that. Yeah.
So it's just 32 games in the memory. You can see that that's 132. Sorry, you can see the joysticks are totally rip off of the Sega Genesis, and you have all the games. So is it selling well? Probably not, but they are still doing it. Like
it's selling well enough that they keep doing it.
Keep doing it. Exactly.
I mean, there's this. It's just free money. Like, it's like, can we talk about like why this is the case at all? Like, why this is still supported? I mean, this mostly boils down to like Brazil's tax codes and like import laws, right?
Yeah, and
they're basically just grandfathered in.
The value of the things are there insane.
Yeah.
I was talking to my wife yesterday. I remember 2011 when I moved to US. I keep coming here because of work, traveling, and all this. So I bought her an iPad, and I paid at the time, I don't know, $300 probably, but I pay in reais because that's how was my income was coming at the time, right? So at the time, probably I paid 600 reais. That's the double or triple max. Today, one iPad there, if I actually put that in dollars, would be around $2,000 to $3,000 one iPad. So it's insane.
I agree. And this is something I want. All right, to my fellow Americans, I want to say something to you. We are a very spoiled people.
Exactly.
we often think like, oh, gas is like $5 a gallon. Let's revolt and start a war over it. Like, we're very much like, oh, the price of eggs went up 50 cents and we lose our minds.
Yep.
Fine. I'm not saying people aren't hurting economically, whatever. But he's just making a point that it's like literally worse everywhere else in the world by a lot. It's
by
not
a
even
lot.
close. But it's not even go up to Canada. It's a different story up there. So just sometimes eat some of the humble pie. It's all right. It's okay.
No, all my family has iPhones 9, 8.
Sure.
They have or Samsungs, like the entry price level of the phones. Also because of the safety there. So you don't walk with your phone, walk in the street like you're gonna be robbed. So you don't do that. So that's also a
great pitch for Brazil.
Exactly. That's also a bad thing. But that's a reality. That's how it is. So when I go with my kids there, I was like, no phones, even inside of the cars, no phones. Just play with your phone when we are inside of an apartment or the house or whatever it is, because you don't want to be robbed. So you don't want to lose what you have, right?
Right.
So because of it, those type of things is still working. So you have these for, if you translate that in dollars, it's gonna be about $40, $30. So in reais, it's gonna be 300 reais, which is not $5,000 for a PS5.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. Like, it's insane how the price there is huge for everything. So you don't have access. Simple like that. You don't have the access that you have in US. For sure, people are traveling. So people that are traveling bring everything from US, but even that $1 is 5 reais.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a different currency over there. So
it really is.
Yep.
But
Might be why.
It does result in a lot of oddities. And like I said, and correct me if I'm wrong, but basically the reason the Master System is still allowed is that it's effectively just a grandfathered into a tax bracket where it doesn't have to deal with those kinds of rules.
Sure.
It's something to that effect. I mean, you would know more about it, but that's what effectively keeps it alive, is that it's affordable because it predates a bunch of this. And that's why it's like you can have a PS5, you just need to sell your car.
Exactly.
But you can have a Master System, we'll make a new Masters, and you can have that for, I don't know, a few sandwiches. It's much more reasonable.
Yeah, no, it is. And that's why they keep doing this type of old video games. For sure, they are surfing on the retro of trend that is still ongoing.
Well, I would argue that they just kept going, and then retro became a trend.
They don't care.
Exactly. They don't care. It's not the other way around. And that's fine. That's fine. And you
They
know,
might be
Sega,
selling more. They might be selling more.
They probably are, because there's a bunch of people like me who are like, wait a minute, what?
What?
That's cool. I want to try that.
Yeah.
But I would argue it's also really cool that it just happened. This is just a coincidence of the universe. The fact that it was Sega that was so cooperative, because modern day Sega's like, yeah, I don't care.
Why not? Yeah.
They'll license anything. They don't care. Whereas if this was Nintendo, no,
not at all.
They'd send like their lawyers to invade Brazil. Like it would be a whole different story.
Yeah, that's another thing that I wanna bring to you. Like, what you were talking about, the generations.
Yes.
And that's why I know you. The reason that I know and I respect a lot Adam is because of his videos. So I've been watching these videos since I actually arrived in US, when the company transferred me to here. And I was like, okay, I want to be, now I can be the collectible that I really want to be. And I couldn't, because in Brazil, you buy one, you have to sell the other one, because you can't keep both. Like, it's a lot of money. So you have to choose what you want to, what's your battles. There's people now doing it, but even that, the collections there now, it's insanely pricey. So oh my gosh, it's so bad. Generation videos actually gave me a good perspective on what US had as a video game history, right? And you were doing that by generation, right? So that was amazing what you did. You probably have more, all the consoles. You still probably have all the consoles, or
no, there's actually still a bunch I'm missing. Like, dude,
but
every one of us at some point who's like a crazy collector has this, like, I'm gonna get every video game system, until you realize that's completely impossible.
Done. Yes.
Like, Brazil is a perfect case study of why it's impossible. You just pulled out like 3 different systems I will never own.
Yep.
Like, they're never gonna have those, because they're like, now granted, you could argue that's just,
well, you have one now, because
thank you. No, I mean, like the ones you pulled out. But yes, I appreciate it.
For sure.
You are right about the super compact though. But the other, we'll get to that. But the point is, like, there's so many models and so many iterations, you're never realistically going to own everything. And then you start getting to be like, okay, what if I just want like one? Like an NES is fine. That's good enough for that machine. Fine.
Yep.
But then you start getting into other systems you didn't know existed, like, at all.
Yep.
Like Casio, the company that makes watches and keyboards, they've made not one but 2 different video game systems.
Correct.
They made the Casio Loopy, which was a girl oriented, like, it was marketed for girls, a video game system. Only had 11 games ever released, only came out in Japan, and it had a sticker printer on it. And you're like, all right, I have to get that too, I guess. And then the other one they made, called the PV1000, was recalled after its launch and never relaunched.
Yep.
So the only way to get it is to find one of the handful that was sold and kept and then resold to you. So, like, you just go, and you start to pick your battles over, like, you were mentioning Apple before, like, obviously Apple, very big, one of the biggest companies, if not the biggest company in the world, and it's made everything under the sun. They made a video game system.
Correct.
And everybody tends to forget that. They did it once, ever. The Apple Pippin. It was designed to compete with the PlayStation and the N64. We're not talking ancient history here.
No.
And you never see it, because it came out in Europe, technically, barely came out in the US. It had a limited release in Japan, and that's the only place you'll see it. Because when Steve Jobs came in, he recalled the European and American units, but he didn't have the power to do that in Japan, because they had partnered with Bandai. So that's the only way you'll ever see one of those. Point is, you just go like, there's too many of these things. Yep. And you just go like, all right, any one of them I could get my hands on, I was like, I'll make a video on it. But even I'm like, I look at that list and I'm like, well, like, the most infamous one for me now is a system called the FM Towns Marty.
Yeah.
And the only thing that's notable about it is Fujitsu made it, which is a Japanese computer company. And it's the first 5th gen system. So it's the same generation again as the N64 and PS1 and Sega Saturn, etc. I don't have one. Been looking for forever. I got buddies who have it, but whatever. Point is, there's a lot of video game systems and you can never realistically get them all. But anytime I could, I was like, I'm going to tell the story as best I can. That way, anybody out there like you who's like, I'm going to watch it and be like, you know what? I think I'd rather get a Saturn over the Pippin, or whatever.
Yeah. And I want to ask you one thing, but let me grab another thing that I want to show you.
By all means.
Yep.
By the way, everybody, if you do get an Apple Pippin, the easiest one, you can get them actually for like $100 to $200 if you find it in Japan. And it does, I don't usually advocate piracy, but you're never going to find the games for it. It's utterly impossible. I've been looking forever. I've only ever found 4, and they're all crap. There's a few decent games on that system, but it plays burn discs, which is a little odd considering it was a relatively late release system. It was the last system of that generation. and it has Marathon on it, which was made by Bungie. It's effectively the precursor to Halo, is exclusively on consoles on the Apple Pippin, at least physically. I think there was a digital re-release years later.
Adam, do you think if Steve Jobs doesn't pull off the Pippin, it would be a Xbox vibe? Exactly, would be like that as Microsoft did or not?
I'm going to say probably not, only because you have to remember where Apple was at the time. The whole reason they brought Steve Jobs back was they were a dying company. Now, I think if the Pippin or a video game console had been the brainchild of Steve Jobs, like the iPlay or something, the iGame, whatever it is, I think they could have done that.
They could.
But I also think that time is over.
Yeah.
I don't think the Pippin itself had a chance at that, just because they failed right out of the gate. And I don't think Steve Jobs was ever going to get behind somebody else's child, if you will.
Yep.
And so I don't think that system had any realistic chance. But an Apple system, even though I hate Apple products, I'm going to be open about that.
Yeah.
In fact, I think the only one I own is the Pippin, funny enough. I think they could have done it, but they just never had the interest. They just never did.
They never did, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking about Master System Super Compact. So you saw this one.
Okay.
I sold you it was a very good price. This
you
guy.
did. I really appreciate that.
And that's now higher. I'll bring to PDX again. So let's see if people want to see and play on this.
All right, so let's talk about that. So I don't have mine on me, unfortunately. You should probably know I took it to a buddy of mine to do maintenance on it. There was nothing really wrong with it. I was just like, I'll let him go in and put some recap it a little. He's still got it, so I haven't seen it back. He's like, I've been done with it for months. Come get it. I just haven't done it. But it's fine. But yeah, so that is a portable version of the Master System that is actually not a weird clone. That one was actually built by Sega specifically.
Yeah.
And makes it a very unique machine. Yeah. Because you can argue, even if you're like me, you're a super Sega collector, you like all this random stuff, you can kind of tell yourself, well, TecToy did it, and it's just, it's just a clone. No, I mean, TecToy did release that.
Yeah.
But Sega built it.
Yep.
Which is, so you just go, because it means you need it.
So Sega built it. That's the whole system. So you can put the second joystick here.
Mm-hmm.
And that you can hook up direct to the TV or via RF antenna. You can actually broadcast it.
You can broadcast RF, PAL RF.
Yes.
I don't even know if you could play it worse. It's the thing is that it is a great novelty. You should be very clear what it is. It's a portable version of the Sega Master System with no screen, which sounds really pointless until you realize the whole idea is you effectively have the system and the controller all in one, and it's just connected to the TV and you can play it there. And that's just another way of doing it. They did the same thing actually with the Genesis or in Mega Drive specifically. Right? Yeah, the Mega Jet in Japan. I don't know if I've done a video on it. I do have one of those as well. Yeah. That one was done for airlines, and then it was sold off to just retailers, whatever. But same logic. It was like give them the controller and the system in one, and maybe then they can bring it to their friend's house or whatever. Clearly did not pan out. But funny enough, the Super Compact has more iterations because it has the Game Girl.
That's what I want to show you. So that's the girl version.
Yep, there it is.
It's pink. So that's 90s people. So girls loves pink, or people say that pink was for girls.
Well, whatever it is. I think we can kind of blame that on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers a little bit.
Right?
But yeah.
But yellow was there. I mean, I don't know. So
yellow was played by a boy in Japan.
Oh, okay.
Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Oh yeah, so you watched this is totally unrelated. If you watch the Power Rangers, Mighty Morphin, the original show, all the Power Rangers footage is Japanese footage from a totally different show, and then they filmed American actors to fill in all the gaps. I remember that. And in the Japanese footage, the Yellow Ranger was actually a boy, which is why the Pink Ranger has a skirt and the Yellow Ranger does not.
Doesn't have it. Oh, nice. Good to know.
Worthless knowledge, but yeah.
So same thing. You can play RF. You can play with the cable. Oh, this one is just RF, no cable. So this one doesn't
wireless,
have the cable. Just with the RF. You can do RF cable.
Yeah, no, what I'm saying is they both use an RF cable or wireless broadcast, right?
This one actually has AV.
It does.
Yeah, this one has AV.
Is that the same one you sold me? Maybe
not. I think the one that I sold you was just.
Oh, you gave me the crappy one.
Yeah,
I get
yeah,
it. All
exactly.
Right. Thank you. Appreciate
That's
that.
what I got.
I'm just kidding, dude. I'm just kidding.
Because again, you don't choose. You just look for the games, and this one is just RF. You know what I mean?
I'm just goofing around.
Yeah. The antenna is pink on this one.
That's kind of cool.
Crazy. Yeah, it's
cool. A little weird, but cool. That means they went out of their way to do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, that's coming with a very original in quotes game inside called Mônica no Castelo do Dragão.
Something about a dragon.
Exactly. Mônica.
Oh, I actually got a word right.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
MVP.
That's the Wonder Boy. So that's the the modern Wonder Boy.
Okay. All right.
Mônica is a very famous cartoon in Brazil. Like very, very famous. Like Mickey Mouse in US. That's Mônica.
Really?
Exactly.
I'm very famous. Pay me.
That's how Mônica is there. So they put the game here inside.
That makes sense.
Thought that Mônica was a game for girl because she's a girl, but everybody loves to play Mônica. They have 2 games also, and I will put the video on this channel. You're gonna see both of the games. So that's the weird part of Sega. So there's much more. I want to show you, and I use that as a surprise in another video. But I do have this Mega Drive 4.
Ah, okay.
Comes with a guitar.
Of course it does. Yeah, because Guitar Hero was famously associated with the Mega Drive, Genesis.
Whatever.
I remember playing Guitar Hero on that, of course.
So you can play that. It's a bad game. It's all in the memory. But again, it's part of the history of Sega also in Brazil.
Well, the thing is, it didn't end there.
Yeah, there's more.
We tend to associate it mostly with the Master System because that's at least in North America and Europe. That's kind of where the meme is just that, it's Master. They went all the way up to Dreamcast.
Yep.
And so, like, I know you brought these TecToy Saturn to PRGE, which so the guy you sold that to is a buddy of mine. He was super happy about that because that guy's name is Sega Steve. He collects Saturn like nobody else. Like it's insane. He's got the karaoke unit, all that sort of stuff. And so he was the one who wanted to buy that. He took it apart and he's like, yeah, it's really just a North American Saturn with a little solder job to like kind of region free it a little. Like that's really all it is. And then like on the back, it's just stamped with TecToy, just like there's not even a sticker. It's just, and so we all got a kick out of that. And then there's the TecToy Dreamcast, which I've never had one. I don't know if you ever have.
I don't. No.
Yeah. So you can correct me on this. I read the other day, and I don't know if it's true. I didn't get any details on it. Apparently, if this is true, so spoilers, or this is speculation time. I'm not necessarily saying this is definitely happening. Supposedly, Sega and TecToy signed some new deal for Dreamcast reissues.
That's new for me.
Never. You didn't hear that? Okay. So I give me 2 seconds to see if I can find what I was looking for, because I read about this very briefly. And so I didn't get any great details on it, but it was something. No, it was unfortunately I can't find it on Google. It was something that had been posted. I think it was in one of the Brazilian groups, funny enough, that I'm in on Facebook. Oddly enough,
they do have Facebook, it a lot.
Yeah, Facebook has a Brazilian group that's like, those guys are, first of all, they're crazy awesome because they're constantly like translating and doing a whole bunch of work, and they're like, hey, we took this because, like, no offense, there's a lot of piracy history in your country, so you guys are really good at it. So like, there's a lot of versions of Dreamcast games that are like, I didn't like the sound mix in it, so I like completely redid it myself, and here it is, or whatever. I think it was in one of those. I saw somebody talking about like, TecToy and Sega are talking about Dreamcast reissues or making new Dreamcast units.
Well, TecToy has a new owner, so that CEO that I talk, Stefano Arnaud, he sold the company like 2018, if I'm not wrong. So they are still on, but it's kind of a mobile company now. So they do cell phones. They have the Sega Master System. They have an Atari clone. There, it's not a clone. Probably they actually talk with Atari.
Right. Atari's very willing to sell the 2600 as many times as you want to buy it.
That's exactly what it is. So they have the Atari, but they have laptops, they have iPads, and they are doing this. I want to show you one more thing.
Sure.
They actually launched a new video game, and that was like the most crappy things that I ever heard, because what they said was, we're gonna compete with PlayStation and Xbox, and it was just another clone system,
Of course it is.
but it's but it's 4K.
Oh
So
yeah, no,
yeah.
of course. 4K Master System. That's what we've all been waiting for. But yeah, while he does that, the Dreamcast thing. So again, this is unsubstantiated. It was something I think I saw on a Facebook group. But if there's any truth to that, I'm going to tell you right now that that's going to go really under the radar for a while, and then if it ends up panning out, people are going to go nuts for those.
So they keep that's still ongoing. So they launched this new video game
Okay.
called Legends Core Plus.
Okay.
So you open up, you have. It's so funny because when they launched it, I bought right away because I was like, I really want to have it, and now it's half of the price. So I was like, dude, I could wait. Anyways, so there's a manual of the video game.
Nice controller.
The controller is the Xbox controller for sure.
I was going to say that's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah,
Xbox One controller.
And the game is here, so you can download it, games.
What
but
a
it's
complex
all
machine.
It's all arcade games. So all the arcade games are here. So why they actually did that noise, for sure, probably was a big joke that came, and they actually had fun of it. But they really launched it with that intention to be the new generation, like the 9th generation of TecToy.
So I'll just float this. So maybe you've been living in the US too long.
Yep.
Because you're taking the American perspective of that's ridiculous.
Yes.
But if you're in Brazil and you're like, wait, $5,000 for a PS5, or how much was that thing?
That probably would be in US $200.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're like, well,
yeah,
$5,000 for a PS5, or this thing TecToy says is just as good.
Just as good
for $200. I'm gonna go with that.
Yep.
I would bet that's so to the domestic audience that probably made some measure of sense. Oh, it's got Star Wars. Great.
Exactly.
You know that great game Star Wars.
They have Tetris too.
Oh, good. That's
Burger Time. But my point is, they are alive. They are not doing crazy stuff like a new Dreamcast. You know what I mean? They might be.
There might be something going on there. I don't know what it is. If it's a simple reissue, or if it's just like a little tiny box like that has emulators with a few Dreamcast games on it. I don't know. But we do know Sega cooperates. And I will say that if any country could be a great test market for like a random reissue of the Dreamcast, Brazil is probably your best bet.
Yes, because they did for the Sega Genesis a very nice version in 2017 of the original one. That one you can actually put games via SD cards, and it's 1080p, so it's much better. You know,
that's an interesting point because you have to wonder. Okay, I'm just going to float this. This is all speculation, everybody. I'm not saying this is happening. If there's any country that could release, I'm sorry about the focus here.
No,
if there's any country that could release an officially licensed pro pirate version of the Dreamcast, it would be Brazil. Where you could have it just be like a little box, kind of like the thing you just showed. You could put an SD card in it, and it could just have Dreamcast ISOs on it. And Sega would be like, that's fine. They don't care
anymore.
They could never sell that in North America. They could never sell that in Europe. They could never sell that in Japan. In Brazil, it's fine.
Yeah.
And I promise you right now, if that does ever happen, you are going to have to play a horrible proxy job of just importing tons of those things for the rest of us. I'm just letting you know. It's going to happen. And if you don't, there's going to be problems.
Dreamcast is a thing in Brazil. It's a big thing. Like, they love the system. Sonic Adventure 2 was a big hit over there. And even the soccer game, it was I don't remember the name of the soccer game. It's one of the arcade one. Yeah, people love it.
Virtua Striker?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. People love it. So at the time, we were still playing arcade a lot. So arcade is part of our thing because you couldn't buy the systems. So, but you can buy, you can put coins and play it for 25 cents. So why not? So that's why arcade was a big thing for us. So a lot of people from 70s and 80s, they actually played a lot of arcades because the price of the system was not even easy to get, you know? So I'm showing you a piece of the things that are happening over there. A very interesting story about Dreamcast. I'm gonna try to find more about it.
pure, like I said, I think I saw it on a Facebook group, like, and it could just be some guy saying, I want this. It's all in Portuguese, so I can't really like, I'll let you do the investigation. But to me, it would make sense. And if they were ever going to even kind of test the waters of like a Dreamcast reissue where they don't have to authorize it, but they can still make money off of it, Brazil is the perfect proxy country. Because they can be like, we can't control what ISOs people put on it. But whereas the Dreamcast, since they can read unsigned code, every game ever has been ripped for it. It's already kind of associated with piracy anyway.
No, as I said to you, it could happen because of the technology and how much people are eager to do that things there. So even TecToy being a different company now, they can definitely hire somebody to create that back, because there's a lot of technicians over there that can do that. So interesting, very interesting. Let's see.
We'll see if anything comes of it, or I apologize everybody out there for leading you on a rumor mill that is completely wrong.
Maybe.
I'm not claiming this is true.
No,
I want to be very clear about that.
Let's check first. So talking about your channel, you're changing a lot, right? You're changing. You continue doing video game stuff. You continue doing your monthly review.
Right. I'm old. I'm still here.
Yeah. I don't feel the same vibe, but because we are getting old for sure, and we are doing different things, right?
Yes.
Your travel channel is getting bigger.
Thank you.
Right? You are actually traveling more. You are actually talking more about food, about life, about different things. Exactly. Is that where you are actually getting? Well, you go even to the to the shows, and you don't talk much about as you used to do in your channel.
So.
Right?
The lesson I learned, and I actually learned this from Jason, Metal Jesus Rocks, like taught me this one, because he's like, I used to do convention videos on my main channel, like, but what I learned from him was don't do that, because convention videos, the only people who care about them are the people that went to the convention. So the only time you can make it kind of interesting to people where they might be engaged with it is if you kind of combine a lot of it into one, which is you take the convention part, you take the travel part, and you take the pickups part. That's what he does. That's why his videos are like all three of those. I already have a dedicated pickup show, and I have for like 12 years, so I couldn't do that part of it. But then I was like, well, I want to do traveling stuff because I love to travel. I love to do that anyway. So I was like, I'll kind of combine it over there and then make it a little more generic for a travel audience, not so much the video game audience, because ironically, there's going to be travel people who are just like, I want to see things, that are more interested in like, here's the random food I had in Oregon during the convention. Than the gamer who's going to be like, well, I wasn't there, so I don't care. It's like a weird, different philosophy. And so that's where I ended up rolling that out. So the only times now that I mention conventions really on the main channel is usually during the pickups videos, and just say like, this is where they came from. Here's a couple of clips, whatever, which I usually film anyway for the travel channel. But that's why I don't do dedicated convention videos anymore, because I used to, and they would always bomb. And it was just because the only people who would watch them were literally people who went to the con.
That's a good, never thought about it. That's a good point for sure. The con is still a thing in US, and it's still, I mean, you guys, Metal Jesus, you are all going to John Hancock, John Riggs, so you are all of them. So you probably leave. Also, it's probably part of your life of influencer, or if you don't like this word,
it's technically true. The thing is, it was a good word. It's a legitimate word to describe us. It just became a stupid Gen Z word that was like based influencer, and I'm like, shut up. But anyway,
it's part of the game to be on the cons, right? How you feel about that on your?
I love doing that. But everyone has kind of a different goal with it. I honestly do it for the excitement and the travel. There's sometimes there's other benefits that come out of it. You meet people such as yourself. You socialize, you network, if you want to think of it that way. For me, there's never been any great financial incentive to do it, other than the fact that my expenses are covered and all that kind of thing. Somebody like John Riggs is a great example, because he will do it for similar reasons, but he's also trying to sell his product. He has games that he does indie stuff. Same with John Hancock. And then Jason, Metal Jesus, is a little bit more like me in the sense that he's really just there for the adventure, and he can make a video out of it, as we just discussed, and that justifies his time. So we're all a little different. But the other thing is, and we've made a few jokes about it, the generation of us that are kind of known as retro gaming YouTubers, we're getting older. So there's a lot less of us available for these shows. And then the ones that are around get more selective.
Yep.
So like Happy Console Gamer, I'm sure you've heard of him. He's a buddy of mine. He's 50 years old. He doesn't look like it, but he is. And he's married. He has a kid. He used to do more shows. Now he's just like, I do like 1 or 2 a year.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
You know, and it just depends on a case by case basis. You do get some of those like Nintendo, who's a younger guy who's like kind of come out of nowhere, and he's very willing to be on the scene. A lot of them, there's actually a lot of especially the younger ones, and oddly enough, a couple of the older ones like John Hancock and John Riggs specifically are starting to do it because of the travel desire. This didn't happen to me because I grew up traveling all the time because of the nature of my mother's job.
Nice.
But a lot of people don't do that. Obviously, they stay home in their town for most of their life. John Riggs and John Hancock, like it's like they've gotten married, they've had kids, they're Gen Xers, they're just, that's where they lived. And now it's like they've got a career that's kind of allowing them to go forward and see things around the world, the places in the US they've never been to, etc. And so they're like, they come to me for advice. They're like, what is Louisville, Kentucky like? And I'm like, well, this is what I remember it being like. Or if I want to go to New York, which airport is ideal for that? Like, I'm a guy who can tell you what your route is going to be based on where you live. Like, I'm pretty good at that, just because I fly a lot. But yeah, so that's what I feel is my contribution to it, is like, I just love the travel part of it. I love seeing my buddies. And yeah, like Hancock, I don't know if he's going to watch this or not, but shout out to him and shout out to you guys, because he's going to that show. You guys, I don't know if how much you're responsible for it. The one in Brazil.
I'm zero, but I just help them to talk about it.
I cannot tell you how excited he is.
Yeah.
Because he came to me multiple times over the last few years. He's like, I want to do a show in another country, and I was like, because I've done shows in other countries.
Yeah.
And I was like, you've done shows in Canada. He's like, that doesn't count. But like, because he lives in Washington, so he's like right over the border. But he's like, no, I want to be flown to another country and do the show. I've done cons in like Germany and UK and all over, Japan even. And he's like, I want something. And then you guys, like, again, I'm going to credit you because you're the one I'm talking to, and you're Brazilian.
Sure.
And that show you're tangentially involved in is like, yeah, we'll have John Hancock down to Sao Paulo. It's in Sao Paulo, right?
It's Sao Paulo, yes.
Yeah. So he's beyond elated about going to that show. And so that means a lot to him. So if I don't know if the guys who run that are watching this, but just know he's very happy and he's very eager to do a good job for you. Yeah.
So RetroCon is the show. And Tiozão, it's a big uncle. That's the Tiozão is big uncle. That's his nickname. Because he was the Tiozão of the store who runs the store, and everybody goes to there and say, hey, Tio, can you help me with this game? Can you help me with this other game? And he's getting old, so he calls himself Tiozão, big Tio, big uncle.
Gotcha.
But the guy is the one responsible for the show, and he actually put a lot of his money to do the first edition last year. He has good friends, so he brought some of the big YouTubers that we have in Brazil to go to the show. When I say big YouTubers, I can tell you big YouTubers means double of the subscribers that Metal Jesus has. So how big it is, a big YouTuber in Brazil, that's how it is. Like they have
like a million level?
10 million, 14 million.
Gotcha.
It's a lot. Yeah. Luis just hit a very good mark of it, the Retrogamer Brazil. I think he got 100K, which very nice. Like for us, like we are growing together on this. Very nice to see that happening. And he's from Oregon, so he's there. So he was invited to the show. So he was the one who actually came to John Hancock and say, hey, do you want to do this? And John was the first one who said, yeah, for sure, let's do this. So there's a lot of things ongoing to actually get a celeb that way there, like you, like him.
Oh, I'd love to go. Don't get me wrong.
And I talk with Tiozão about you. So budget is one thing.
Yeah, of course.
And also the number of guests. So you might be invited for the next one, maybe. So he can actually get more differentiated of people,
Of course.
But John is coming, and Luis actually help everything, like flight tickets, security, everything that needs for John to be there in a very good way. Because again, it's a lot of people. We don't know how much they know him. We know that the Brazil celebs needs security because people will actually jump on them, say, "Hey, I want to take
Oh,
a
I see
picture."
what you're saying.
You
Like,
know?
how much does anybody gonna mob John Hancock?
Oh yeah,
Ah,
I don't know
doubt it.
exactly. But as long as when they start to know who he is,
Yeah,
that could be, oh, I want to take a picture. In Brazilian takes picture like this. Hey, let's take a picture. They hug. They don't ask.
physical, very physical, right?
Very
Yeah,
physical.
yeah.
So for John, it's going to be very weird. So those are the things that Luis and Tiozão are thinking step by step to make
Sure.
sure that John is going to have good time. And it's a very good organization. So there is a space just for the YouTubers, so you don't be actually in the middle of everybody. They actually do a very good job on it. This con, it's different from what we are used to. It's not like Portland Retro Gaming Convention. It's not. There is one or two or three maybe max vendors, because Tiozão is the owner of a Casa do Video Games House, big store in Brazil. So he wants to sell his own stuff.
Of course.
And he's paying for it. So he's the biggest part of the show.
So
it's
kind of a monopoly.
Exactly.
It's a convention that's really, this is my show.
Yeah.
This is my store. Come in.
This is my store. And I have 2 or 3 more friends of mine that will go with me, and they have their own stores. Then they're going to talk about the books because they launch a lot of books as NES Punk does here in NES Punk. So a lot of those books are being sold by Warp Zone, who is part of a partner of Tiozão. So it's all related to him, but it's getting bigger because we don't have an event like that. Brazil Game Show is one of the good examples on what it had in the past.
I almost went to that once.
Yeah, it's a very big one. It's huge, but it's not about retro. You know what I mean?
I do. It's totally side story. Like, exactly. I got an email from Ubisoft Brazil like 2 weeks before that event. And they're like, "Do you want to come? We'll bring you down." And I was like, "Of course I want to go." Then I found out you need a visa, or at least you did at the time. And I was like,
you do.
That's not, there's no way. There's just not enough time for that.
Yeah.
So, well, you guys got rid of that for a bit, and now you brought it back. Which is
the new, different presidents, right?
Oh, yeah, no, I live in America. I understand. Yes. Or we don't need to go down that road. I'm just saying that was what hindered that trip. Is I didn't have a visa. There was no way to get it in time.
Yep. So you have to get a visa. It takes time to get it, like a month or a month and a half to do. So you have to prepare yourself. So John is probably doing all this. Like he's.
I told him that when he first messaged me. He's like, "Have you been to Brazil?" And I was like, "No." But and I told him because I was like, "Do you have a passport?" He's like, "Yeah, I need to renew it." And I'm like, "Do that yesterday."
Yes.
And then I was like, because you need that first, and then you need to submit for a visa to Brazil, which can take like a month.
Yep.
So do that, because I don't think he was really planning to get the ball rolling on that until like utterly essential. I know the flight was already booked.
Yeah.
But he was thinking like, I'll deal with the visa after that. And I'm like,
no, do now.
Now.
And use the ticket. Use the ticket saying that you are going, because then they can speed up the things.
Precisely. So I know he's on it. I bullied him into it. So you're welcome. Because I was like, John, because again, travel guy. So I was like, even though I haven't been there, I can tell you that one for sure.
Yep. And that's it. Like Brazil is getting more organized to do this. Canal 3, Channel 3, that's probably the good translation, is doing an event since the 2000s, like the Portland Game Show. So, but it's a more vendor setup, more like what we are used to see. So they do that every single year. It's getting bigger also, but it's a different show. This Retrocom show, it's different. It's more like about the celeb. It's about the YouTuber. They do podcasts. They're gonna talk with John. John is gonna be every single Brazil game channel. He doesn't know that yet, but he will be.
Want me to tell him?
Yeah.
Should I warn him a little bit?
He's gonna have an agenda. So
okay.
Yeah, he's gonna be there. They have an agenda. It's all organized. So he's gonna sit down and talk with the people over there. And they speak English. So
for the record, John's a very good sport about, hey, whatever you need me to do, I'm there. He's very professional about that. I'm not going to name names. There are certain ones that you do see pop up at shows that do not take it quite as seriously. I will leave it at that.
I know a little bit who you can.
I won't say names. It's not me. I do stuff. There are ones. We'll leave it at that.
Other is here. Other is easy. Mm-hmm. No, you're right. And I think this is the organization that you are seeing. Last year, they did a very good job. So there's a lot of videos. I can give you one link so you can just see what it is. But Retrocom is getting a thing in Brazil, and I hope it keep going. So what I always talk with Tiozão is I hope you can continue moving forward with it, because Brazil needs it, and we want to be known by something that it's bigger than Brazil Game Show in terms of retro. And I
Sure.
think that's the thing, that's the show that could be bigger than what we want. So yeah, no, very excited. Portland. So we are
Yes.
going to Portland again.
You are.
Yes. So
Okay.
now I'm gonna have a bigger booth because I am joining with Luis from
Okay.
Retro Game Brazil, and also I don't know if you know Seattle Games. I don't know if you know
Not
this
a fan.
guy.
You'll have to introduce me to Luis. Though.
Yeah, I would. Oh, you talk with him.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, you talk with him.
You introduced me like 10 people. So like,
do you remember the guy that you showed the
Pluto too? That doesn't
Pluto.
narrow it down at all.
Yeah.
It's like I show that to everybody. But I do remember. Yes, I know we did an interview.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think you are in his channel.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So he'll
yeah.
remember me.
I will interview. I will interview. I will interview.
Yeah, actually, that's a good question. If I were to go to that show, would I bring the Pluto? And if I did, am I going to get it stolen?
No.
Okay, good. I'm just kidding about that.
It's gonna be with you.
Yeah.
No matter what. No.
I meant like if I take a photo outside, you're like, no phones. Oh, the Pluto.
Yeah.
I'm just joking.
They don't even know what Pluto is, so you'll be fine. You know what I mean? But
it
no,
says
I just
Sega on it though.
Oh yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
They can come to you and say, "Oh, is that from TecToy?"
I'll be like, yes. It's TecToy 2. It's very advanced.
No, I think you can definitely bring. It's gonna be a big hit if you do this because they never saw it.
Right.
And it's traveling.
It has never been to South America. Yeah. No part of it.
Yeah. It's time. It's
time. I've never been to South America either. Actually, that's other than Antarctica. South America is the only continent I've never been to.
Really? I didn't know about that.
Yeah,
okay.
I've obviously I've never been to Antarctica. My mom went there once. Funny enough. But South America, never been. I've been North America, obviously here right now. Europe, Asia, Australia, Oceania. I've even been to Africa very briefly, but like I've never been to any part of South America.
Any part of South America? Well, Mexico, Central America, yes, right?
Central America, yeah. I've been to Mexico. I've been to Costa Rica. I've even been to Cuba.
Yeah, Brazil is a very big country, and it's not as big as US for sure, but it's big country. Yeah.
Geographically speaking, you take Alaska out of the equation, you're pretty close to the size of the continental US.
It is a continental country for sure. So I don't know, but I don't know the entire São Paulo. I mean, I travel a lot in Brazil. I know all the states, but São Paulo is an 18 million piece of land. People,
that's a point I need to make to everybody out there who is not from Brazil, who's probably never really thought much about Brazil. When you think about the biggest cities in the Western Hemisphere, probably New York comes to mind. Not even hold a candle to Sao Paulo. Not even close.
No.
The biggest city in North America is Mexico City, which has like, 12 million?
Yep.
Sao Paulo is like, what did you say, 18?
18, yeah.
That's the biggest city in the Western Hemisphere. We never talk about it.
Yeah, it's a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's a lot of, and it's not about, I keep saying that Sao Paulo looks like New York. Looks like that. It's not jungle, it's not, it's a big city, like
there is unfortunately this American perception that Brazil's just a giant jungle and just people are walking around with sticks and playing Master System. It's like, why do you think that? Like, it's obviously a city.
I moved to Oregon, and I remember as soon as I moved, somebody asked me, "Oh, did you see a lot of animals there in Brazil?" I said, "I saw more here." Yeah, I saw a deer yesterday.
It's not just, to be fair, it's not just you. Like I got Australian buddies. I've been to Australia. I've been to Sydney. I've been to cities down there. You wouldn't know you wouldn't know that they're so associated with like deadly spiders and kangaroo invasions because it doesn't really happen.
Exactly.
People just think, oh, if I go to Australia, I'm going to get killed by like a 20-foot spider. It's like, no, it's all lies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's exactly what it is. In Rio de Janeiro is more like Los Angeles, so it's that vibe. It's it's a different vibe over there. So it's a big country, different states. As we have here, they think differently. They actually have different cultures.
Right. It's New York doesn't think the same way as Texas.
Exactly.
I got you.
How it is in Brazil. And Minas Gerais, who is the middle of Brazil, wants to be more on the video game scene also. And they do in terms of collectors, but they don't have a retro convention. So talk with people there to see what else we can do for the future, make sure that we can create something that it's a bigger noise over there. One of my friends there, Rumble, you know Rumble, he calls himself Rumble of the games, Rumble dos Jogos. That's his YouTube channel, and he does a lot of competitions, like Mario Kart competitions or fight competitions with retro gaming. It's getting popular. People are watching his videos because people loves to see one competing to another. That is also part of the retro gaming that didn't die yet. I would say they are still wants to see people playing, not a gameplay maybe, but it's more like people playing each other and how fun it is, you know.
I could see Brazil being this like interesting little bastion of retro gaming for the future, just because of its unique setup and the fact that it gets screwed on a lot of the newer stuff, and there's this whole culture that isn't quite, you know, ready to move on. So like eventually you could be pumping a lot of retro games from North America down there. It could be like this weird reversal thing, and who knows?
Who knows exactly?
Yeah.
But definitely, I think it's something for us to think. If it's not this year, next year, if you go to RetroCon, I'll go also, and we can be there together, so I can present to you. You know,
that's like, your call. I just go where I'm asked.
yeah, that would be nice. But let's talk about Portland. I mean, what's your expectations for that? I'm asking you because the audience of this Brazil channel is very interested on Portland Retro Gaming Show because it's big, because of the size of it, and people knows about it being like the biggest one.
So you just want my take on it?
Yes. What's your take on it? Do you think it's gonna be bigger? It's gonna be smaller? It's gonna what it is?
Okay, so PRGE, Portland Retro Game Expo, I would actually go so far as to say is the best retro game show that I've ever been to. And that's not a knock against any other show. It's just that I'm sorry, it's just like it's the gold standard. It's up here, and your second best one is down here, and then like it just starts going tier. It's a different level. It's Michael Jordan versus like little kids team. Like it's not the same discussion. And the reason it's so good at that is multiple, but they've got a very good mix of guests, of space, of vendor tables, multicultural vendor tables. Like, I mean, you particularly represented Brazil in a unique way that nobody else really does. You have your Japanese dealers, you have some even European dealers, you obviously have North American dealers, you have people that specialize in like one system. Like I said, my buddy Sega Steve had a booth just selling Saturn stuff, nothing else. They also have every year they have a museum component. They have multiple museum components, and they usually specialize on something weird. Like, here's a complete Atari Jaguar collection and the entire history of the Atari Jaguar. Does anybody care about that? Not necessarily, but we've swung for the fences anyway. That's the kind of attitude behind it, is we're going to make you care about something you thought you wouldn't care about, as opposed to just trying to give you Fortnite because it's popular. You know what I mean? Like they try to present it as like, this is actually meant for the dedicated retro gaming community. The space in there is massive, so I don't think we're at any fear of, you know, maybe necessarily making it smaller or bigger. I'm sure they'll utilize the whole space. They have a nice mix of arcades in there as well. But one thing they don't do, and I'm actually kind of appreciative of this, is they don't, like, a lot of gaming shows now do like live wrestling and live music and stuff, which is fine if you kind of separate it, but like a lot of shows they don't have the space for it. So they're like, we have live music and live wrestling, like while you're trying to buy stuff. And it's just like this cacophony of noise giving you a headache. And you're just like, shut up. Like, it's not what I'm here for. They also obviously have a lot of guests. That show in particular is so good that a lot of the retro gaming YouTubers are not guests. They go because they want to go.
That's nice to know.
That's a unique one. Now I've been a guest there multiple times. I'm finding it extraordinarily highly probable that I will be a guest there again this year. I would put it at, let's just say, like 99% chance. They also started doing other things. Like, I see you wearing the Blockbuster hat, so you already know where I'm going with this. But the last Blockbuster in the world happens to be in Bend, Oregon, which is only like a 3-hour drive from Portland Retro Game Expo. The two of them have basically decided to get married. So like every time PRGE happens now,
that's where I bought.
Exactly. The Blockbuster people bring up a whole bunch of stuff, and they just do like a live Blockbuster setup to cash in, frankly, on nostalgia, but also do like a Blockbuster video game championship. I actually got to be an MC for that both times that they've done it. Yeah, so you just do live commentary and things like that, and you get to pick the champion based on the performance and all that sort of stuff. They've done a very good job of basically integrating the very niche communities of retro gaming and bring them all together for one event. So when I say that, like, there is a Dreamcast scene, there is a Saturn scene, there's all these different scenes for different systems. Almost all of them have some sort of presence there. Like this last one, the Dreamcast scene is largely fueled by Video Games New York, which is a single store in Manhattan in New York. And it's run by a guy named Dan, who's a buddy of mine. And he publishes like almost every Dreamcast game now. And he decided to go and bring his team. And they not only like provided, they made custom Dreamcast Blockbuster VMUs for the event, which I think you might remember. I
saw it. Yes, yeah.
I became the custodian of those. I had to carry them around, give it to the winner, and give one to the Blockbuster. It was because I know all these people, and they all kind of trust me with random stuff. I'm like this glue guy that just kind of goes. But anyway, so Dan was involved in making sure that Dreamcast was represented. So Dreamcast was being played with new indie games. The Saturn community had like an entire Saturn room set up. So I brought the Pluto so they could mess with that. The Jaguar room, when we had that set, I brought the Atari Jaguar dental unit. I had a guy behind that. I mean, I know I could talk about this forever. My point is, though, that Portland Retro Game Expo, part of the reason it is so great is because you basically have the top tier talent in the retro gaming community all coming together for the purposes of a single event.
Nice.
Where their whole goal is just, let's represent. This isn't just a show where you go to buy stuff. You can do that anywhere. This isn't a show where you just go to meet like A, B, and C and D, YouTuber.
Sure.
This is the one show where you go to celebrate the concept of retro video games.
That's awesome way to put it. That's exactly how I feel going. Yeah. I go since 2014, if I'm not wrong. And every single year it's that feeling. Like we just actually got a booth. We want to go. We want to do it. It's we have to be there to have the sensation of be part of this big community that we are living with.
Yes.
Like you, like John, like not just the people, but also the vibe of the video game living, like the retro game living, which is crazy. Yeah. I need your help because I really want to do a panel of TecToy there.
Yeah.
And what I did is
you want me on the panel?
Yes.
Okay, that was easy.
That'll be a dream.
But the one thing about PRGE that I don't like, I say that I'm joking when I say that, is I wear like 1,000 different hats at that show. Like you might have noticed every time you see me, I'm like running around somewhere.
Always ready.
Because I'm always either working for Blockbuster, working for the Video Game Museum, working for the Jaguar thing, working for the Sega thing, doing random panels. I have no problem with it.
Every time I met you there, you were like,
I'm sweating help? And running around. But the thing with that is simply that, like, I appreciate that they bring me out there and they cover all that. They don't pay me to do that, but like, I don't mind. I'm happy to do it. And I just enjoy being able to like facilitate that. I think in another life I was a producer where I was just like trying to help people get stuff. So that's why I was like hooking up with the guy Sega Steve, because I'm like, he'll really appreciate the Saturn, you'll appreciate his money, everybody wins, that kind of thing. But yes, as for your panel, if you want me on there, I'd happy to do it.
Yeah, so what I did, I signed up for it, and I hope they call me. But if you can help me to get, could be Sunday, could be any time. I just want to do it. And I talked with them last year.
I will speak to the person who's most likely. I can't guarantee, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. I talked with Rick.
I will do my best.
Yeah, I did talk with Rick, and let's see if he remembers. Last year, he's like, for sure, next year you're gonna be here, and I hope that happened, because that's definitely also part of the dream to be on the PRG is to be in one panel. So that'll be a nice way for us.
I've done a few panels there at this point, and it's usually just the same one now, which is like, hey, let's talk about the Pluto, and I don't even care. It's just like, it's fine, it's interesting. Like the Pluto is not mine, and for those who don't know what we're talking about, I'll just give a quick. I don't have it in front of me, otherwise I would show you. You can put up a photo or something.
No, I do have that. There's a card here. You probably somewhere.
Okay.
Where you can see the video of the PRGE last year. Perfect. I was with Adam. With the video game in my hands. So
sure, perfect. So basically the short pitch of this thing is that Sega was working on an upgraded version of the Sega Saturn. It was called the Sega Pluto because planets. Sega had this weird obsession with planets, and I'm not going to go into the history of that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they only made 2 of them. One ended up in Japan, where Sega of Japan killed the whole project from there, and then that one just fell into some guy's house until he died, and then an estate sale revealed, like, hey, this is a thing. What happened to the other one? My buddy Roger found it in a flea market in California when he was a kid.
That's so crazy.
And he was just like, I have the other one. And the whole internet freaked out. And he was like, whatever, I don't care. Because he's not an internet guy. He's like, I don't want to deal with any of this. So very long story short, he basically, he met me and he was like, I trust you. And then he just let me borrow it in perpetuity. So
Forever.
I've got it. It's in the other room. And I take it to shows. I let people see it, play it. If they're, logical, sensible people, I will let them take a photo holding it, that kind of thing. Kind of like Terry Diebold used to do with the Nintendo PlayStation prototype. He was a really good friend of mine. So I kind of do that for Terry a little bit. But it's also one of those things that's truly a unique piece of history in video games. Like I said, there's only 2 of those things, and the other one was sold. And I don't know who it ended up with. I know it's sold for $84,000 US.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and the company that sold it was Heritage Auctions. They're the same people that sold the Nintendo PlayStation. Now, with the Nintendo PlayStation,
we're never going to see that again.
Probably not. But with the Nintendo PlayStation, they were willing to tell me anything I wanted to know. They're like, yeah, this is the guy's name who bought it. This is where it is. Here's his phone number. Like, they didn't care. I was like, how about the Sega Pluto? Like, look, I have the other one. They're like, we cannot talk about that. And so that tells me whoever bought it with some sort of confidentiality agreement, aka the one we've got is the only one you'll ever see.
Yep.
And that's one of the great things about PRGE is they recognize the uniqueness of something like that. And they're like, that must be here. It just must, because one day it will either cease to exist. It will be sold. Who knows? This is a very limited time window where the public can see it with their own eyes and actually experience it. And that's just one thing. That doesn't include the oddity of like the Jaguar dental unit that we were talking about. And so it's become a weird thing now where I've got a lot of friends who have a lot of retro video game stuff, yourself included, that is just odd. And so it becomes kind of fun when you go to these shows and you're like, all right, wherever the show is geographically, I must have a friend around there somewhere who's probably got something weird. I'm going to have a table with the Pluto. Why don't you bring your odd thing?
Exactly.
So I'm trying to remember, like I went to Long Island Retro last year and they only asked me to bring the Pluto. And I was like, sure. And I brought the dental unit with me as a bonus. And a buddy of mine was like, hey, I'm coming up from DC. Do you want me to bring anything? He has like a GameCube development kit, a PlayStation 1 development kit. I was like, yeah, bring those. Another buddy of mine had the Panzer Dragoon Orta Xbox. I was like, bring that. And so our whole table just became like these impossibly rare oddities. And we're not trying to sell you anything. We're just like, look, they exist.
Yeah.
Enjoy. Yeah. And it always is a show. People just love doing that. So the irony is at PRGE, I can't do that because I have so many stupid things I got to run around and do. So I always have to be like, all right, where's the Saturn Shiro guys? Here, take the Pluto. I don't want it. Just do it. Where's the Jaguar guy? Okay, here, take that. Like, I always have to fend stuff off on people. But yeah, so it's a lot of fun though.
It is fun. And yeah, for sure, if I do this panel, I'll bring Phantom. I'll bring Top Game.
You got to bring his. I will warn you in advance, as someone who has to travel with a lot of this stuff, it sucks bringing it everywhere. It really sucks. So cherry pick the ones that are the most important to talk about.
Yes.
Because you will need them.
Yep. And they will love to see it.
Oh, yeah.
We sold the Street Fighter for Sega Master System on that show last year.
Yes.
And we sold for the New York Museum retro gaming, something like that is underground.
The Syracuse one.
Exactly.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
We sold to them, and I'm so proud that it's going to be there forever. Like, it's going to be somewhere that people goes and see it. I do have a copy here, and I always
wonder if they're the ones who bought the other Pluto.
Maybe.
All right. I have to. So I'm going to tell a little bit of a story here. So a few years ago, do you remember when Sega was doing their Sega like Go campaign? It was like 2020, so it was like a big anniversary for them. That was right before COVID hit, so like the plans were more normal for a while. Sega came to me because they were like, "Hey, you have a bunch of our obscure consoles." This is before I even had access to the Pluto, by the way. But they were like, "You have a bunch of our stuff. Are you willing to like make videos and all sorts of stuff?" I was like, "Yeah, of course." And they're like, "We're doing this whole history of Sega thing, and we're trying to plug some of the gaps." And we really have to start like, in the 1970s or something like that. And I was like, I have a lead on your 1950s arcade stuff from Hawaii. And they're like,
Dude.
what? And I was like, I know who has it. I know who has it.
Oh,
and it's
gosh.
operational and I can contact them. And they were like, we will absolutely pay to send you out there if you can do that. So where it is that museum you're talking about. It's not publicly on display though. It's in their basement,
Exactly.
archived. So I contacted them on behalf of myself as a YouTuber. They knew who I was. And they're like, you want to come to our museum to film? Done. And so I told Sega, I'm like, look, here it is. Like, we can do this.
Got it.
And it was all about to happen. And then COVID destroyed everything.
Oh my gosh.
I know, right?
Okay.
So yeah, but the point is the Hawaii era 1958 Sega cabinets are still there. So I guess in hindsight, I never considered it until you mentioned it. Yeah. It is possible they're the ones that bought the other Pluto.
Because they're obsessed about Sega.
Yeah.
They're buying all this stuff around it. Why they are not talking about it? That's the issue.
I don't
right?
That's a mystery. Know. Yeah. I don't know because my experience with them was very cordial. They were very like, yeah, dude, come on out. There was I never got a go, like F yourself. Nice. I never got anything like don't talk to us, like don't talk about us. No attitude like that. It was always, dude, yes. So I don't know why that they would hide that information if that was the case. Yeah. But I haven't been there. I do know people that have, and they all say like the best stuff is all in the basement that you're not allowed access to for the most part. And the only reason really is just that's just how they manage the place. I think maybe it's a mixture. I'm purely speculating. Maybe it's a mixture of like they keep the best hidden stuff down there because it's the most valuable in case like the world goes up. We preserve history, and the stuff on the surface is all your Fortnite stuff because that's what the kids are there for. I don't know. I haven't been there, so I don't know. Yeah. But at the same time, if you have this like 1958 Sega arcade cabinet, people's natural instinct might be to try to play it, and you may not want them doing that. Exactly. So. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
That might be why. Yeah, good call. So Adam, we're getting in the end of our show today, and I'm just again, as I said to you, so glad that you say yes for these crazy things.
Oh, yeah. And I hope it was informative and interesting.
Oh, yeah, it's always good. I can talk to you for the next 4 hours, no problem.
Easily.
I think we got a very good friendship ongoing, but I would say not just that, it's how easy you are. Like I never would thought about that.
I'm a slut. I know.
I was watching the videos and seeing you talking about everything. It was like, this guy could be a very nice guy, and you are. Because sometimes those YouTubers are not, to be honest. Like, so they are very nice on the videos. But I want to say thank you again to be here. That's a new channel. I hope this channel can grow and we can talk more about those crazy stuff that I just show in detail, and we can go to it. I would love to be again. Now I am inviting myself to go to your podcast because I am expecting to be there someday. That would be a dream also.
My podcast. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm totally cool with that.
We talked about that last time that you were in the show.
I always forget about that, dude, because like when you talk to me at PRGE, like I'm like on 40% power all the time.
I know.
So I'm usually just drinking tons of this and running around. So like you just got to remind me in a digital form later.
Yeah. So before you go, Shenmue 4, is that a thing?
There is something called Shenmue 4 in some stage of development, only because what we know basically happened with Shenmue 3 is that production on that game was funded by a multitude of sources, and it was continuing onward well past the ending we see in that game. But eventually Deep Silver was like, this has to come out now, because Yu Suzuki has a bad history of just continuing endlessly until somebody forces his hand. That's how Shenmue 1 ended, was somebody forced his hand and said, you need to get this out.
Yeah.
And so that's just how you got Shenmue 1. Shenmue 2 only came out because like the Dreamcast is about to wrap up. Like we're about done. You need to either release this or it never comes out. And then Shenmue 3 was way over budget. And it only came out because eventually Deep Silver said something. And they were like, this has to happen. So there is a certain amount of something you would consider to be the beginning of Shenmue 4 that exists. How much of that it is, I don't know. I do not think there's any active development on it. At least there isn't any to my knowledge. I don't know how far along it could potentially be. I do personally believe it will get made. I have no specific insights on that. I just think it will, based on the fact that a good chunk of it is done. There's still a good chunk of the fan base that's totally on board for that kind of thing. You really could wrap it up relatively cheap if you're willing to continue with the pre-existing Unreal Engine assets and just continue onward. It's more Shenmue 5 that I'm worried about, because Yu Suzuki has made very clear you would need at least a 5th game to get that done. And I'm not as optimistic about that, but I say one fight at a time. So I think Shenmue 4 is very realistic. I just don't know when.
Where? Okay. Did you like the Shenmue 3? I mean, if you wrap up the whole story, the seller, everything.
I like Shenmue 3 just fine because I knew what I was getting into, which was a lot of people who like Shenmue very casually kind of approached it as, okay, it's a trilogy, which I don't know where they got that idea. It's a trilogy of revenge. So the 3rd game is just he fights Londi and that's the end of the game. Yeah. Which was never true. It was never true. It was just something people wanted to believe. It was originally set up as a 7-part game series about a character basically going through the entirety of effectively an RPG storyline. Like if you look at RPGs, most of them start off with like a single blurb that kind of tells you where your character is from. Yep. That's Shenmue 1. They let you play that line of dialogue that explains where the character came from. And then you go and like the first, set of things is just like Shenmue 2 is just setting up stakes. That's all it's really doing. Shenmue 3 is just the part of that big game that is just really the training mission where you're like learning all the basics of combat before you go out into the real game. I knew that going in. And I also knew there was no chance that was ever going to be the end of the story, either narratively or intentionally, for any reason. It was never supposed to end as Shenmue 3, even in the best case scenario.
That's why the 4 is so important.
Yes, because at the end of Shenmue 3, according to Yu Suzuki anyway, Shenmue's, like Ryo specifically, Ryo Hazuki's journey is only 40% complete. We're not even at the halfway point narratively. Yeah. There's so 60% left.
So crazy.
And the thing is, again, a lot of expectations of people was that it was just going to wrap it all up. And it's like, that was never realistic. Yeah. Ever. It would be, how do I put this? It would be like if you're comparing it to like big movies, like say you had, they made Star Wars, it was big film, whatever. Imagine if it was like this big hype movie, but it didn't actually do all that well. Like maybe Star Wars and then they barely got Empire Strikes Back out. And it was like, okay, this was a good movie. And then you just had to wait forever for Return of the Jedi and like the entire cast. Like you would never, I don't know. By the time it came out, it never really would have felt like a proper conclusion because it wasn't really meant to end there. According to George Lucas, it was meant to go on for another 6 more movies, as we all know. So it was like, it wasn't really meant to end there. And that's why Return of the Jedi in particular feels a little odd. And they're like, change it all up. He's got Ewoks. And it's like, I'm getting off point, but I'm just saying that Shenmue was never meant to end at Shenmue 3. And the fans who actually knew that tend to enjoy Shenmue 3 more. The gameplay is unapologetically more Shenmue, and my only real criticism of it as a game is the stupid food mechanic that I did not like at all. But the rest of the game, I'm sorry, what did you want? It's just a continuation of more of the story. It finishes up, let's see, Shenmue 1 is chapter 1. They skip chapter 2. Shenmue 2 is chapters 3, 4, and the first half of 5. So Shenmue 3 is just the second half of chapter 5 and the first half of chapter 6. That is it.
That's it.
Out of I think it was 12 chapter story.
Wow. Okay.
12 or 13. So
it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like the game just fine. Yes. I guess it was disappointing in the sense that it didn't keep going, but I guess that's the sign of a good game. One that makes you want more. Yep. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I liked it, but yes, I hated the food mechanic. I'll admit that.
Yeah, I know. All right, my friend. Thank you for this. I mean, I'd love to ask you that and see if you have any other tips about the next launch. So that's good to know.
Yeah, nothing, no insider knowledge in this case. Yeah. I hope or would presume that if there is any sort of next, objective there, that at some point they'll reach out to guys like myself. But as of now, I only know the last updates I got, which was years ago.
Yep, that's crazy. All right, Adam, thank you very much again for the participation. Yes, definitely going to be in touch. We're going to see each other during this year. For the audience here, thank you for coming. Thank you for joining this channel. Please subscribe. Make sure that you hit the like button if you like Adam, and make sure that you ring the bell if you want to receive the new communications about new videos. That's who I am. My name is NT. You can call me NTGames, and we're gonna see each other soon. I always close my videos in Portuguese saying jogue videogame, which means play video games. That's how it is. See you next time. Thank you, Adam.
Obrigado.
Obrigado.